Hi, everyone. Welcome into tonight's edition of Wave News Extra. And it's a bit of a special edition, let's say, for you folks wanted to check in on this stream in particular, whether that's through the Wave Now app or on our social media. Just because we know right now on Wave, on our proper broadcast TV channel, the NBA action is back on NBC. So just know this is just another way to make sure around this time of night, kind of to, as I always phrase it, unpack and break down some of the big stories we've been following throughout the day. And of course, other stories kind of spreading out across Kentucky and Indiana. So just wanted to make sure we touch base with you for checking in and wanted to go over some of those stories as we've been able to get those up on TV and, of course, on the main website. So appreciate you spending some time with us for the next 45 minutes. I'm Jose Sosaya here in the Wave Now studio proper. For example, we can dive right into some of the big stories. One of them taking us to a pretty, disturbing crime scene out in Okolona and some new updates in a deadly double shooting at an apartment complex. Well, we now know there is one woman who's charged for her alleged connection to this double homicide that happened last month. Police even saying that she helped plan these killings. So Wave News reporter Fernando Garcia Francischini, one of our Wave News reporting team members, sharing some details of what police say happened before and after this particular shooting. So we're going to start there with our stories tonight.
LMPD says 22-year-old Jasmine Brown was communicating with 3 suspected shooters. Police say Brown told those suspected shooters the door to the apartment where the 2 victims lived was unlocked so they could go in while the victims were asleep. Police say Brown showed up to the Falcon Crest Apartments after the shooting on September 29th and told officers she lived at the apartment where the 2 men were killed. She told police the victims were her roommates. Police say an LMPD detective took witness statements that morning, and LMPD says that detective corroborated those statements through jail calls Brown made to one of the suspected shooters. Police also found Brown with a handgun that had been reported stolen. We spoke to a neighbor who says she's shocked something like that could happen so close to her home.
I thought it was just a couple guys involved and, they had a beef with a couple other guys. But, to have a woman behind it all and planning everything, that's surprising. Yeah.
Brown is charged with 2 counts of complicity to murder and 1 count of receiving stolen property. Her bond was set at $1 million. LMPD is still looking for the other 3 involved. Police say this is an ongoing investigation. Anyone with information is asked to call LMPD's anonymous tip line. Reporting in Okolona, Fernando Garcia Francischini, Wave News.
Before the court charged with vehicular homicide.
Looking at more stories and updates tonight, we found out bond was set at $100,000. This in the case of another woman, but she's charged in a crash that left one man dead. Ariel Taylor. This is a video of her in court this morning, accused of causing this crash around 7:40 last night, Monday night. This was the crash around West Lee Street and McCloskey Avenue in the Algonquin neighborhood, which was something we did have as an update on live on Wave News. Police saying Taylor was driving a pickup on Lee Street when she apparently ran a stop sign, hit a Mustang. The driver was trying to get through the intersection, but the Mustang driver died. His name has not been released just yet. There's also an arrest report saying that Taylor smelled of alcohol and marijuana. Taylor is charged with vehicular homicide while under the influence of drugs and driving under the influence of alcohol. So those are the official charges. Today, the judge actually lowered her bond to $100,000, but also did order Taylor not to drive for that time should she have posted the bond. Moving on to a story, actually, which is going to be kind of the main focus of our reporting tonight from our Julia Richardson, in fact, on Wave News at 11, which, as a quick reminder, going to be deferred to when this doubleheader on the NBA on NBC does wrap up late into the night. So just a heads up there. But we are going to be going on live on air for for the purposes of doing our newscast and sharing the stories and those updates with you there. And of course, the forecasting from our storm tracking team. But needless to say, so JCPS parents apparently, based on our reporter there, Julia, letting us know this is a meeting that should have wrapped up within an hour's time. But the demand and the concern has been such that it extended well past the supposed wrap-up time because parents, it seems, have a lot of questions and concerns about this idea to change school boundaries in the eastern part of Jefferson County. And just to give you some context of where this could happen. So there's a plan that calls for moving students out of what's a newish but really popular school, Echo Trail Middle School, moving some if the redistricting happens into Crosby Middle. So the plan, part of the reason leaders or those who support this plan say it needs to happen is because there's overcrowding, showing how fast the district is changing. Echo Trail, in fact, opened in 2023 to address overcrowding in the eastern side of the county, but this is already apparently over capacity. This is the view that our Wave News crew was able to get when classes let out today. There was traffic congestion that we saw, the carpool lane picking students up with cars coming and going quickly or trying to go quickly. In the short time the school has been open, it has become a popular choice for parents. Some families have actually moved here just to be part of Echo Trail and have their kids study there. If the lines are redrawn, some of the students end up going to Crosby Middle. Families we talked to understand that they are going to have to make some adjustments.
It would not affect my oldest that's here now, but I have 3 more. He's the youngest back here, and I'd love for the 3 of them to get to come here. It's very close to their home.
And even though the final decision is not close to being made, there's nothing official yet, did bring up a pretty frequent question of students in the schools that would not be affected by the changing boundaries. But so that would only apply to 6th graders coming into said school. Coming into that case would be Crosby or Echo Trail. So yeah, the question then would be what happens when you have middle school siblings going to separate schools? A lot of questions likely that parents had for the leaders hosting this meeting. And again, our Julie Richardson is going to break down what she was able to glean from this latest exchange, this Q&A, and kind of lay out what parents' biggest questions and concerns are going to be. So make sure you tune in for that report late tonight on Wave News at a later time beyond 11 o'clock, of course. More updates to some stories. Kentucky State Representative Beverly Burton has 4 more days to serve of her 9-day home incarceration sentence after she took what's called an Alford plea as part of her second drunk driving case. The judge allowed Burton to travel to Frankfort to work during her sentence. So what you're seeing here is kind of courtroom video, but the state rep tuning in through coming in and connecting through a video conference. So yeah, Burton appearing in court by phone last Wednesday. So an Alford plea means she does not admit guilt, but concedes the prosecution has enough evidence to convict. Burton was arrested for this case in 2024 when officers responding to another call came upon Burton's car, driving into the opposite lane and stopping before coming back to the right side of the road and then stopping again. Police say that they could smell alcohol on Burton's breath when she got out of the car. Burton declined to take a field sobriety test or even a breathalyzer and repeatedly tried to get back inside her car. Officers said while they were taking her to jail on top of all this, that Burton said, quote, "These guys act like they've never been to a birthday party." That was the quote in the report. The judge also gave Burton a 170-day jail sentence, but conditionally discharged it. That means as long as Burton does not get into trouble again legally over the next 2 years, she would not or ever have to serve that specific jail sentence. More stories tonight as the federal government shutdown stretches into its next day. Here we are on October 21st. National parks across the country are feeling a little bit more of that pressure. This includes Mammoth Cave National Park here, one of those jewels of the Kentucky park system, but certainly a part of the National Park Network, which normally sees hundreds of visitors a day. But with federal funding frozen temporarily, the park has closed all of its cave tours except one. It has been reopened with the help of donations from a nonprofit organization called Friends of Mammoth Cave. They say they want to see the park keep serving the community as it has done all these years.
We have actually been around for the past 24 years doing all the things that we can to help make the park better, get education there, help pay for school groups to be able to come. Currently, we've been using our own funding and also doing fundraising and reaching out to local businesses to try to get help with that financial need.
So the organization says it's been working to keep some critical sections of the park open during the shutdown, including the visitor center and now the self-guided cave tour. Donations, the group says they can be made online at mammothfriends.org while this is a matter for lawmakers in Washington to negotiate whenever the government can be reopened. Coming back here in the studio, pertaining to some worries for communities when it comes to government funding. For many Kentucky and Indiana farmers, the soybean harvest is well underway. A huge crop for this particular slice of our state, our communities. But many farmers are saying that there's a problem for them because prices have dropped due to the ongoing international trade war. So again, perhaps policy debates and discussions in D.C. impacting people on the ground. Reporter Barbara Bellinger has a look at how many in this chunk of Kentucky and Indiana say they're worried about what this means for the future of their respective livelihoods.
One Davis County farmer says that the price of soybeans has fallen so far. Some farmers are wondering not what type of profit they'll make this year, but whether they're even going to be able to break even.
The profit margin for this year, as it stands with current prices and current yields in this particular area, if you were to have no help out there, you're going to have it very hard to find that you're going to make ends meet.
Kegel blames the tariffs. Because of the Trump administration's trade war, China opted out of buying U.S. soybeans this year. And with that drop in demand came a drop in prices.
They're really at a crossroads of whether they want to continue down this road of very low profitability or no profitability, or if they're even able to do that, based on whether they can borrow the money to operate at a loss.
For many farmers, it's their legacy that's at stake.
A lot of people are working to pass farms down generation lines into the next group of family members that are looking to take over a family farm. They're looking for making a future for their kids.
He says subsidies could help. However, it's been about a week since the president mentioned a subsidy to help our U.S. soybean farmers, but nothing has happened since then.
That was reporter Barbara Bellinger, who said that one of the men involved, the soybean farmers and the stakeholders, saying promises at a national government level, saying they're not helping them with the issues they're facing about making those ends meet right now, and try to find at least a short-term solution in that regard. Here we are at 8:18 on this Tuesday night. We're going to have much more coming up after this quick break here on Wave News Extra. This includes an update on some new affordable housing developments in Louisville and the progress of what was built when that's officially going to be open or available to bring renters in. Some updates on some stories across the Commonwealth. Check in on a pretty scary scene down at Atlanta's International Airport, and a look inside Indiana State Police's brand new crime lab and all of the investment that's put in to get the latest technology as far as solving what could be, cool cases extending to cold cases that require this kind of expert DNA tracing and technology. So we're going to take a quick break and be right back with much more of tonight's Wave News Extra. Welcome back in, everyone, to tonight's edition of Wave News Extra. So Louisville Metro Housing Authority, with this update, despite some effects on programs, organizations, because of government shutdown funding across the country and including Wave Country. Even so, LMHA says it was able to finish its $200 million project to redevelop the Beecher Terrace neighborhood 13 years after the Housing Authority first started talking to residents about ways they could improve this particular community. Well, now that the project is complete, LMHA Director Elizabeth Strojan came by here to the Wave News studios to talk about how the new housing complex was ultimately built to keep residents safe.
Our goal is always safe, decent housing that low-income people can afford. And we believe that low-income housing really shouldn't look different than regular housing. The only difference is how it's financed.
Ultimately, Metro Housing says it's going to celebrate completing this new Beecher Terrace housing project next Tuesday, October 28th. That is happening at around 10 a.m. An update across Kentucky. The name Jaden Spicer, if you're familiar with this awful case, well, his stepfather, Joshua Gross, filed a motion to lower his bond, which is right now set at $1 million. Gross facing multiple charges, which include complicity to murder little Jaden Spicer and tampering with evidence. The 10-year-old, his body was found in a shallow grave. You remember this startling story after police say his mother admitted to giving him too much sleeping medication. In this new motion, a copy of it submitted to the court, that before these charges, the Gross only had traffic violations. It also states he can't be reasonably, or that he cannot reasonably reach his current bond payment. So that's the argument he and his attorneys are making. There is a court hearing set to address this matter. That is happening this Friday at 10 a.m. Staying with stories from across Kentucky, there are some calls now for Governor Andy Beshear to resume executions in the Commonwealth. State Senator Brandon Smith sent a letter asking the governor to sign a death warrant for a man called Ralph Bays. He's convicted of killing the Powell County Sheriff and a sheriff's deputy more than 30 years ago. The state senator says the victims' families have waited too long for justice, and that the Commonwealth's Attorneys Association says there's no longer a legal reason for the state's moratorium on these executions to continue.
Now that the Department of Corrections has updated their protocols and has given assurances that the access to the necessary drugs and the lethal injection can be acquired, there is no bar. That was the bar for execution. So there's really no legal reason why executions can't move forward, especially those who have exhausted their appeals.
Now, the last execution Kentucky has witnessed was back in 2008, and the inmate requested it. 2 years later, a Franklin Circuit Court judge issued the moratorium after some questions were raised about the drugs being used for lethal injections and whether they violated the Constitution's ban on cruel and unusual punishments. The Kentucky Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty did release a statement about calls to reinstate the penalty, saying in part, quote, and I'm just reading off the statement we were able to get here at Wave News' newsroom, quote, Kentucky has gone over 10 years without a new death sentence handed down and over 15 years without an execution. During the same time frame, we've seen violent crime rates lowering nationwide and in the state. We should take dollars wasted on this, quote, dormant, decaying system and invest them in solutions that have a track record of success. And that is the end quote from the Coalition Abolishing the Death Penalty. But certainly a story we'll keep following here, as will other news agencies across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. All right, our eyes are going to shift real quick down to Georgia, and a story down at the Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport on Monday where there's a man in custody who's now charged because police say he planned to shoot up the airport and the people inside itself. This is 49-year-old Billy Cagle from Georgia, arrested shortly after getting to the airport at around 9 a.m. on Monday. And you can see in the circle from the security video there, police saying his family alerted them, so that his family alerted officers of Cagle's plan that he announced on a live stream to go to the airport and to shoot it up. Atlanta police later found an assault rifle in his car with the ammunition required. You can see the pictures there provided by the FBI. He is charged with terroristic threats, criminal attempt to commit aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm. Coming back to closer to Wave Country, but taking this perspective into Indiana. If you ever watched a CSI show, you might be, yourself fascinated with just how quickly a crime, at least in the TV episode timeline, gets solved based on what could be a very minute piece of evidence. Reporter Jamie French from our sister station in Evansville gives us a look at how the state is processing the most important details of a case thanks to investments into ISP's new and improved crime forensics lab.
Over the past few years, DNA evidence has allowed tri-state law enforcement to make breakthroughs on dozens of cold cases and difficult crimes. The fingernails of convicted killer Timothy Farber leading to his arrest in another gruesome murder case from 3 decades ago. A pair of swimsuit bottoms and a suspect's body exhumed from the grave, revisiting the 30-year investigation into Heather Teague's disappearance. The smallest traces of genetic material.
That means I can get DNA evidence from things such as skin cells, blood, semen, saliva, bones, tissues, hairs that have roots.
With infinite ways to find it.
Sexual assault kits, clothing, bed sheets, bottles, cans, masks, cigarette butts. Those are just to name some of the types of evidence that we typically encounter.
I got a look at how it all works at the Indiana State Police Forensic Laboratory and a sneak peek at their newly built, much larger facility. But before I could get inside, I had to do a series of DNA swabs to be entered into the visitor's database.
This is pretty much the only space here that you guys have to work with while you're still in this old building.
Yes, this one room, and then we have an amplification room, which is even smaller than this.
Forensic scientist Susan Laney spends her day in the lab going through police evidence. She collects samples, creates a DNA analysis, and develops a profile.
So if it's positive, one will turn purple?
Which is what you're seeing now.
Laney leads a laboratory team of 5 analysts serving law enforcement agencies across 20 Indiana counties. She says she has seen it all.
When we have a rush case that comes in and we have a certain amount of time that that case has to be completed by, and the amplification process may not work as expected, and then we have to re-amplify those samples, well, that puts us kind of behind that time frame in trying to get that case out to meet, say, a court date. So that can be very frustrating and very stressful.
Today, Louis Fogel is officially a free man, cleared on all charges thanks to new DNA evidence.
But then the next day, it can be rewarding all over again to where we develop DNA, and just maybe that DNA might help to keep someone who is innocent from going to jail.
Laney says her job has really advanced since she started 30 years ago.
Samples in here.
Her team now uses robots to help process DNA faster.
These new technologies have really helped us in developing investigative leads for investigators when we may not have had any before.
ISP uses a nationwide database where law enforcement can compare DNA from crime scenes with DNA from previous offenders. They also use familial searching and investigative genealogy.
We can take human remains that have been found, and we can identify that and give a family maybe closure.
Laney says analyzing DNA is a very complex process, and it's nothing like you see on CSI shows.
We do not get it solved in 24 hours. My testing can take, it could be days, it could be weeks, it could be months, depending on the type of case and the number of items that I'm needing to look at.
The work Laney and her team does every day has transformed how police investigate crimes and collect evidence. And it will for many more years to come.
All right, thanks to reporter Jamie French right there. So the ISP Forensic Lab building has been working since the 70s. So Lane and her team say they're looking forward very much to moving into the newly built facility soon. Lane also says she hopes the new building creates more opportunities to advance DNA analysis in Indiana by making room for even more new technology and more analysts to work inside of the lab together. All right, folks, coming up after this break on Wave News Extra, we're going to have an in-studio discussion to a pretty special anniversary for the Louisville Slugger Museum and the iconic entrance piece that, of course, lovers of history of baseball and visitors to town all get to walk past, take pictures with the big bat. And our Logan Perone, in fact, breaking down what's been a fascinating history, a torch, if you will, passed down by the hands that help bring this giant bat to life. So just a fun discussion about a pretty, cool anniversary if you're into baseball, local history, the things that kind of make the community what it is. So we're going to have that coming up after this quick break here on Wave News Extra. Hey there, folks. Thanks for joining us for this part of tonight's edition of Wave News Extra. Happy to see our Wave News reporter, Logan Perone. Logan also not in the studio for quite a bit of time, but through no fault of his own. That's just because...
busy work.
Yeah.
That's everybody else.
Busy work, and then when you're out of the office, it's hard to kind of make that part work to connect and talk about some stories. This is a fun one for those of you who kind of check in with us and know a little bit about our mutual love of baseball. Something very easy to discuss, Logan, and talk about, when you're in a place like Louisville, sort of a museum. And I mean that literally, but figuratively, but it's saying this sort of like this repository of just amazing history that exists at the Louisville Slugger Museum. So aptly named, of course, but for all the players and the teams we discuss, and to think that sort of a big marker landmark that we associate driving by downtown all the time.
Yeah,
celebrating a pretty big anniversary this week.
Big Bet turned 30 years old today. So, you're looking at something that's been in the skyline since 1995. It's 120 feet tall, 68,000 pounds. Millions of people have seen this. The Slugger Museum gets about 300,000 visitors every single year. It's a big driver for the community. And so today, a big bat needs a big birthday bash. So we were out there early. They got the original pennant up there, and then they sang happy birthday to the bat. I mean, it was corny in the best way.
It's not a proper celebration without just doing the whole, I don't know, the pomp and circumstance and the tradition of it's a big birthday. Why not?
I say, why not? I'm not 30 yet. I hope someone celebrates me when I turn 30 like this. But I have to say, for the big bat, it was a home run. They hit it out of the park. They had the card. They had the song. They had the cake. Didn't get any cake, but I got a cupcake. So close enough. But yeah, I mean, it was really cool to see, really fun. A lot of the times, this job can wear you down with some, heavy stories. And then something like this always makes you smile. So Big Bat turns 30, and, it's a historic piece. I mean, when I first came to Louisville, I didn't put this in OTT because I specifically didn't want to give it as much airtime. But there's the photo of me on my first day ever in Louisville. hugging the Slugger bat.
I mean, Logan has shared this picture with us as far as like, it feels, call it a pilgrimage of sorts, but just to say this feels like a pretty cool place to be. But if you do love baseball, I think even folks, we talk about perhaps a huge draw. And while folks, let's say, are here for the biggest, like, actual concentrated event of the year, which is down at Churchill Downs for the Derby.
Oh, yeah.
But while you're here, maybe it would attract those folks who wouldn't necessarily label themselves as baseball fans, but you're like, I can't not leave town without going to check out Big Bat and everything that's, collected, documented inside of the museum.
I mean, folks, I've been on the tour. I want to say, like, honest to God, at this time, probably 5 times in the last year. I've been on the tour. I love it so much. I did a story back in February, which ties into this one a little that we covered. And, I got to go in and see places that other people don't get to normally see. So I am like the biggest, I think, Slugger Museum fan. But that story, Jose, that we had done was about some photos that made it to the bat. So back in February, folks, I happened to be stumbling along Facebook in a small Facebook group. And that's where I encountered Carrie Yates. That is the wife of the man on the left. That is John Yates. He's the man who painted the Slugger bat by hand. Him and Steve Ratliff.
A massive labor of love if you think about the size that you referred to it earlier.
120
feet that you have to cover.
Hand painted
by yourself.
Hand painted.
Or not by yourself, but just doing it painstakingly slow.
Yes. And the amazing thing in February when we covered this story was that they painted this and they did it by hand, but they didn't really know who had done it. This was a mystery to them. And the only reason they found out was because Carrie, John's wife, had said, hey, I'm going to donate these photos to the museum. Do you guys want them? And they said, well, that's great. We didn't even know his name. We just knew a local artist painted it. So again, John there on the left, Steve there on the right. So in the days after my story in February, we found out through emails and whatnot that Steve was actually the name of the second painter, the guy in the red hat there.
Steve Ratliff, I believe correctly.
Steve Ratliff, yes, another local painter. He actually passed away earlier this year. 2 weeks before our first story aired in February. So, I really wanted to get his story out there. Just time had gone on and I knew Big Bat 30 was coming up. So I reached out to UC there, Mike McKinley. In 2002, those are these photos here. He repainted the bat. He worked for the same company that Steve and John worked for. And I think it's just one of those crazy things where I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know there was a third person. And of course, there's photos of him doing the work, so it's awesome. Just because of the paint that was used and the glossy coat over the original painting that you're seeing there, they needed to strip it and repaint it in 2002. I found an article from the Courier-Journal. Gotta attribute my reporting, but it's from 2002, and it's a clipping that Mike actually gave me. 14 months, 65 gallons of paint went into the repainting that you see right there. And he did it by hand himself that time. Oof. On a crane. And again, in the first time they painted it, it was in Preston, in a Preston Highway parking lot. It was horizontal. He had to get in a crane because this one was vertical. Already put that.
And I don't know if the museum was inclined necessarily to pay to have to relocate it and then set it up. I'm sure horizontally would have saved Mike in this instance a boatload of time. But hey, when you want the job done right and you're like, I guess, I'll work and adapt to the conditions I do have and take the crane ride up Big Bat. By the way, it's great when, we're finding out the sort of all these chapters of a lot of TLC done to Big Bat. And as far as, the sound and the story shared that we've got on record, and you obviously went to the party today. What's some of the stuff that you've kind of heard shared for the story you put together, Logan, that you thought was really interesting?
Well, here's the thing. And, we have these memories here in photos that you just saw. There's not a single time I've been past Slugger Museum and or the Big Bat that I haven't seen people breaking their neck, looking up, and taking photos. I mean, this is a place where you make memories. You want to take a photo. It's so unique. There's nothing else really like it. Lord knows however far out. This is like one of the unique things that the city can say, hey, we got a 120-foot bat. It's really big, and it's awesome. And so that was something I noticed is there's people making memories. I met people there today who were there for the first time.
Okay.
I met people who had been back 4 or 5 times from North Carolina, of all places. They love this thing. It's a big memory that they'll always have, like quite literally larger than life. And, fortunately, I was able to talk with Mike actually about being part of something that's this big in the community. And it was just so nice to, catch up with someone who truly had a hand in this. So let's hear from him.
Set up for Mike.
Yeah.
I started working for Negley in 1989, and that's when I met Steve and John. And we worked together for the first couple of years, and then they got this secret project that they were in on. And we found out that it was the bat, and when it came downtown, it was a big deal. But they decided to put a clear coat on it. They caused it to start chipping after a few years, and they eventually had to take it all the way down, prime it, and repaint it. And Steve and John did not want to do it again, so I got the job. I enjoyed it. I mean, it was obviously a big deal. People liked it. Everybody that comes out of the museum, like, they have to tap their little bat on it or take a picture with it. So, it felt real good.
Sounding very humble there, Mike, but I think he's right in pointing out if you don't walk away with, I'd argue, 2 souvenirs from a visit to the museum, Logan, it's one, you're going to get your mini bat and perhaps have that explanation at the airport, as I know I've heard those stories of like, what you got in your bag?
That's supposed to be in the past.
And I'm just like,
let them fly.
I know.
Let them fly.
Happened
Your SDF,
for
let
one,
them fly.
But 2, that were you really there? It's not selfies or pics or didn't happen. It's very much show me the bat, you next to the bat, or that visit didn't happen, right?
Yes. And so, people that know me know that I'm not from here. So when I first came out to Louisville, I was like, oh, I gotta go get a photo and send it to my family. And even nowadays, even though they're probably getting sick and tired of me doing it, I send a photo of the big bat, and they're always like, wow, that thing is huge. It's crazy. And since then, since I've been here, my brother's been on the tour by himself. I kind of left him hanging one day. My sister has been on the tour with me, taking my girlfriend on the tour. I've been there. Like I said, I can't tell you how many times. And I always find something new or unique, and they're always updating stuff. And so, again, part of this big 30th bash, which I don't want to, overstate in telling the story of Mike and Steve and John. The Slugger Museum is having a social media campaign. They call it Big Bat 30, where if you share the post on Instagram with you in the bat, you and your family in the bat, I don't know, it'll go immediately right into the museum. We have more details on how you can do that on wave3.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, I have a photo from me when I was 18. And I love that photo because it just, for me, it's full circle. Like I said, I'm not from here, but the big bat was always a bucket list item for me. And, then I got to see it in 2018. I moved here in 2024. And next thing you know, this is like my second story on the big bat.
Yes.
Third or fourth story with the museum. And
it's baseball and it's history. So I don't think you have to apologize for it's like saying like these are 2 loves that are very easy to marry when there's stories to discover there, which, by the way, Logan points out the walkthrough of how you can join in on at least, being a part of an active exhibition with the pictures. That's going to be on your story. And Logan's full report is going to be up on wave3.com. I guess in touching base with the guys involved in such a big part of the museum's history, so at least the ones you could talk to, like you did Mike today, I'm sure their goal is, stick around for the next, knock on whatever this material is, knock on carbon, but
carbon steel.
It's carbon steel. We'll find. I don't know where the wood is in the studio, so I'll figure.
I have a mini bat on my desk. I should have brought it in here.
It's fine, but to say for the next 10, 20 years, and that the legend of the bat, and heck, who knows when the next time is going to come for Big Bat to be retouched.
So let me actually give you guys a little tidbit on that because I could talk about this all day. I know I'm on time restrictions, even on OTT streaming. Steve and John, obviously they're passed,
but Mike
is still around. Mike is still retouching it to this day. Every 3 to 4 years, he said he did it early last year, so before I had come here, but he did retouch it. So yes, he did the full repainting when it was stripped in 2002. And again, those are right here. Yep, he did some of that repainting, top to bottom in a crane. Again, kind of crazy, a very exciting job, I'm sure. But and he said he was excited when it was over because he didn't have to get up in a crane anymore. So Mike redid that, and he has been retouching it every few years since. And he's like, hey, man, I retouch it. And as I retouch it, it preserves the bat. It makes it look good. It's as good as it was when it got put in 30 years ago today. So, it's nice to know that he's still around. He's still doing that. He's still, again, a big part of this, genuinely a big part of the community. There's no way to talk about the story without saying big 1,000 times. And so, yeah, he last retouched it last year. He said he'll do it, in a few years. And by doing that, he's like, hey, he said another 25. I said, screw it. Let's go another 30 years that this thing's going to be up. It's got to be.
I mean, now it just feels like an inseparable part of the identity of like going on that visit and making it a whole experience. Meant to think around. Big Bat's going to be around for 60. Hopefully we're around to see the Big Bat.
I can't wait for Big Bat 60. I'm going to be here, folks.
There we go. All right. Always good to catch up with our Wave News reporter, Logan Perrone. And these are the stories we love to share with you. I know it's not necessarily under that What's Good umbrella, but a pretty big anniversary nonetheless for something that seems like woven into the identity of the community. With
I don't even celebrate my mom's birthday this much.
Oh, Mama Perrone, for whenever the next milestone birthday is coming up, a cake of that size and a giant birthday card. How does that sound?
Yeah.
All right, no pressure. No pressure on Logan. He doesn't have to do it by himself. It's just like
I got 5 siblings. We'll let them handle it.
That's right. You can split the workload. And for me, I know the next big milestone birthdays. Hopefully, my parents are around. But it's like saying I got a couple years to prepare on that. So
yeah, maybe for my 30th we can do a big card.
You got what, 4 years left? Or am I
5.
like shorting you there?
5.
Okay. All right.
Baby guys.
Logan's going to have the baseball birthday of his lifetime in 5 years. All right. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with much more of tonight's Wave News Extra after this break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hi there, folks. 8:49 here for Wave News Extra on this Tuesday night. Some work to transform this pretty busy street near Simmons College, connecting Old Louisville and the California neighborhood, is done. The Kentucky Street corridor between 5th and 8th Streets has been converted to from a one-way street into a two-way street. The city says their idea was to slow down traffic, make this block a little safer for people who want to walk and bike to businesses and to class at Simmons College. Along with the street makeover, sidewalks have also gotten their own upgrades. The college president says work like this puts Louisville's HBCU on the map, competing with other schools across the country.
If we want to really improve our city in its totality, especially parts of our city that has been neglected and omitted, then we must build roads.
And while the road work is now finished, the city says the next step is to add a tree canopy to provide a little shade to the area. So more stories that our reporting team is out there checking in on and making sure we share that with you, including a plan that maybe you knew someone or had to stop by the Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport this morning, and you might have seen or heard some emergency crews responding to something, or at least it seemed like there was a lot of movement and motion going on. Well, this was just a practice run, but officials say they do want to prepare for the real emergency if that ever comes and something happens at the airport. Wave News reporter Kirsten Foote was the one to check it out and give us a look at the training that went on.
The simulation of a plane on fire, bloody victims, and dozens of emergency responders is how Louisville's Muhammad Ali International Airport is preparing for the worst case scenario. This is the type of situation no one wants to find their loved one in. This rare full-scale emergency drill is held every 3 years, required by the FAA. Tuesday's simulation was an overturned aircraft on the runway. While it was a controlled simulation, emergency crews who participated in the drill found out in real time what kind of emergency it was. Also, during the training, about 100 volunteer role players were scattered about, portraying various injuries from bruised and able to walk for help up to deceased. It's all part of a situation airport officials hope never happens.
I mean, it's all about preparedness. We prepare for everything. And this just, being able to do all this and have this equipment that we're having here today just gets all the first responders, gets all of our neighboring personnel that's going to be assisting to be able to come in and do what's best for all of our customers that fly out of Louisville Airport.
Airport officials say since 2023, they've invested more than $2 million in emergency response equipment, including rescue trucks and triage tools. In addition to Tuesday's full-scale drill, another public safety exercise will be taking place on Wednesday. Reporting in Louisville, Kirsten Foote, Wave News.
Rounding out our stream tonight, folks, this is a story of a Kentucky woman doing her part to make our state a better and healthier place. So, going from this disaster simulation to a little bit of a palate cleanser, but just as we highlight part of our What's Good series in the umbrella of seeing people affecting that positive change in communities. So reporter Molly Demrow brings us this particular story.
I've always been one to just pick up, a piece or two if we were out and I seen it sitting there, but it's a whole new level now. I'm obsessed.
At the Kentucky River in Nicholasville, Whitney Lewis is doing what she knows best, but this time with a major milestone in the bag.
We just hit our 1 million bag goal. So currently working on 2 million. That's my next step.
Lewis says it's taken 2.5 years to reach that first 1 million bags of litter, and she's determined to double it in half the time.
I want Kentucky to be the cleanest state in the country. So, we're working on it and we're making huge strides.
Her mission started small with one person and one grocery bag.
I decided to do an Earth Day challenge in March of 2023 of picking up 500 grocery bags in a month's time, and I surpassed that goal. I did 750, and I woke up April 23rd, and I was like, I've got to keep going.
And you wouldn't believe the kinds of things that Whitney picks up. Just this morning, she picked up this chair from the Kentucky River.
She's cleaned in more than half of Kentucky's counties and hopes her work continues to inspire others.
I've got 2 girls. I'm a single mom. So if we got doctor's appointments and lots of stuff going on, then I'm just cleaning up on the way into the doctor's appointment,
And if done with love, she says one small act can ripple across the world.
I get mail from as far as Washington State, California, Utah, which is a dream come true, really. Never would have thought in a million years picking up a grocery bag of trash would lead to what it is, but definitely my soul's purpose.
All right, folks, one more thing tonight, perhaps for those of you still tuning into the stream that our programming has changed just because basketball, the NBA is back on NBC with back-to-back games. So for you Hoops fans out there, less than 6 months since OKC, the Oklahoma City Thunder, won the NBA Larry O'Brien Trophy. Well, they're beginning their pursuit of 2 in a row. The season opener going on right now, just kind of waiting for the game action to pick back up. for the OKC Thunder against the Houston Rockets. And the game marks the league's return to NBC airwaves after 24 years. Let's hear about what, tonight heading into the matchup means for former Kentucky Wildcat Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, also the reigning league MVP.
It would suck to lose the NBA championship in 2026. So that's the new focus.
You got to compartmentalize your distractions and be ready to compete when the ball goes up in the air. And there's always distractions every game.
So once this particular game wraps up between the Thunder and the Rockets, next is going to be the Warriors and the Lakers. You might be seeing on some of the other feeds right now, NBC's most notable hire for game coverage this season is the GOAT. If you follow basketball, Michael Jordan, called a special contributor to the broadcasting that will be paired with the game as it's being played live. So, in fact, tonight's game preempted our 7 o'clock newscasts that normally our Dawn G leads. And as a heads up, our 11 o'clock newscast that's normally scheduled to start at 11. It's going to go on after the Warriors and Lakers game wraps up tonight. So make sure you do join us when that time comes, if you're still up, but just want to check in with the storm tracking team's forecast as we prepare for the rest of our day, I should say, for Wednesday. And of course, all the latest, any breaking news that happens and the stories from our reporting team, from our Julia Richardson, all there for you, which, by the way, as a reminder, while you're checking anything else going on, a great tool to always follow with the forecasts and any of the stories we've been covering, local, regional, and even further, right there on the website, wave3.com. From the homepage, scrolling down and clicking on the different tabs, all there at a just a click away for you to make sure you are up to date. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us as we'll wait for tonight's basketball doubleheader to wrap up. And we'll be ready for a late edition of Wave News at 11. For now, I'm Jose Sosaya here in the Wave Now studio. Appreciate you joining in through our smart TV app or our streaming channels, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and X. Always appreciate that. We'll be back here with the next stream of the latest news and stories and reports at 8:05 tomorrow. Until then, take care.